In the news from the BBC, North Korea tests banned Intercontinental missile. North Korea has tested a banned Intercontinental ballistic missile ICBM for the first time since 2017, South Korea and Japan say. A sign of the North's expanding nuclear reach. Professor Leif Erik Islay, UHA University in Seoul. The Kim regime is determined not only to keep South Korea hostage to military threats that can evade Seoul's missile defenses and preemptive strike capabilities, it aims to expand its nuclear reach over the American homeland to deter Washington from coming to the defense of U.S. allies. North Korea is nowhere near initiating aggression on the scale of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but Pyongyang's ambitions likewise exceed self-defense, as it wants to overturn the post-war security order in Asia. The effectiveness of existing sanctions is waning due to lax enforcement by some countries, given China and Russia's lack of cooperation on the UN Security Council or Security Council. The US and its allies will likely need to sanction more entities in those countries and elsewhere that are aiding North Korea's weapons programs. The incoming young administration in South Korea can be expected to increase defense exercises with the United States and security cooperation with Japan. The UN prohibits North Korea from ballistic and nuclear weapons tests and has imposed strict sanctions after previous tests. In 2018, Kim Jong-un put in place a moratorium on long-range ballistic missile and nuclear tests following talks with then U.S. President Donald Trump. But in 2020, Mr. Kim announced he was no longer bound by this promise. In 2017, North Korea tested an ICBM, the Hwasong-12, which reached an altitude of about 4,500 kilometers. The Hwasong-14 demonstrated even greater potential with a range of 8,000 kilometers. Only the US, Russia, and China have land-based missiles of this range. Experts estimated that the 2017 missile could have traveled more than 13,000 kilometers if it had been fired on a standard trajectory, which meant it could reach any part of the continental United States. Thursday's launch also comes as satellite images showed North Korea firing up activity at its nuclear testing facility in Pyongyang earlier this month, stoking fears that the North will resume testing nuclear weapons and long-range missiles. The facility, located in the northeast of the country, had been blown up in 2018 after Mr. Kim promised to halt all nuclear tests. What missiles does North Korea have? Estimated upper ranges in kilometers. Tested operational. Nodong, Song-3, Song-2, Musadan, Hwasong-12, Hwasong-14, Hwasong-15. This is the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. And this is another perfect example of the weak, in this case being North Korea, flexing their muscle, boasting before the international community, saying that they are strong. This is an example of the weak saying, I am strong. Shalom, all praises, blessings, glories, and honors be unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Racha Kodash. Double honors to my elder apostles and bishop elders of Great Millstone who have taught me this truth, as well of men of like mind. Shalom wa chasad, which means peace and mercy to the elect of the nation of Israel, whom are you so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and Israelite foreigners of the seed line of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, whom are scattered here in America, which is Babylon the Great, and abroad. To you I say Shalom and Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Ratazah. This lesson is edifying and informative. Again, the title of this article reads, North Korea Tests Banned Intercontinental Missile. And again, this is another example of the weak saying that they are strong through the flexing of their offensive muscle. Japanese officials estimated it flew 684 miles. It fell in Japanese waters after flying for more than an hour. An ICBM can travel thousands of kilometers on a standard trajectory and could theoretically reach the U.S. North Korea has launched a flurry of missile tests in recent weeks. The U.S. and South Korea have said some of those tests, which Pyongyang claimed were satellite launches, were actually trials of parts of an ICBM system. Thursday's missile appeared to be newer and more powerful than the one North Korea fired 5 years ago. And why is that? Because they've been beating their plowshares into swords and their pruner hooks into spears. That is to say that they've been taking their country's economic wealth and utilizing it towards the research, enhancement, and development of intercontinental ballistic missiles. Reaching an altitude of more than 6,000 kilometers, according to Japanese officials. South Korea's military responded with 5 missile tests of its own from land, sea, and air. So even South Korea, in response, began to flex their muscle. The United States and South Korea have warned in recent weeks that North Korea may be preparing to test fire an ICBM at full range for the first time since 2017. On 16th of March, North Korea launched a suspected missile that appeared to explode shortly after lifting off Pyongyang, South Korea's military said. South Korean President Moon Jae-in condemned the latest missile launch, calling it a breach of the suspension of intercontinental ballistic missile launches promised by Chairman Kim Jong-un to the international community, adding it was also in violation of UN sanctions. And we had read this portion of the article, and one thing that we notice is this image of the 7 different varieties of missiles that North Korea currently possesses, from the Nodong to the Hwasong 15. And each missile can travel at longer ranges, respectively. Okay? So, again, this is an example of the weak saying that I am strong through the boasting of their nuclear capabilities, their offensive capabilities. So now let's go back to the scriptures and then conclude the lesson, Lord's willing. Because the Lord Yahweh through Son Yahweh Shai are putting it into the minds of the leaders of these various nations to beat their plowshares into swords and their pruner hooks into spears, to prepare for the third world's woe which cometh quickly, according to the book of Revelation, chapter 11, verse 14, which will be a war that will be fought with burning and fuel of fire, according to Isaiah chapter 9, verse 5. And the third world's woe will be fought in the Valley of Jehoshaphat, which in the Hebrew is Jehoshaphat, which means Yahweh's judgment. And that is where the Lord Yahweh, through his son Yahushai, will cause all the men of war to draw near to. And the Valley of Jehoshaphat is located in the Arabian Peninsula in the Middle East. That is where all of America's allies are going to bring her, as it is written here in Obadiah, even to the border. Verse 7, all the men of thy confederacy, all of America's allies, have brought thee even to the border. And what border is that referring to? The Valley of Jehoshaphat, Jehoshaphat in the Hebrew. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. Why? Because they're going to burn her up with fire, eat her flesh and burn her up with fire, as it is written in Revelation, the 17th chapter, and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread through doing traffic with America by sea and also by air, but predominantly by sea, have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. Why? Because he is blinded by his pride, because he believes himself to be like the Most High. So this is back in Joel chapter 3, verse 9. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, the heathen nations. Prepare war. For what war? The third world's war. Revelation chapter 11, verse 14, which cometh quickly. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near. And we know where they're going to draw to the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Joel chapter 3, verse 2, I will also gather all nations and will bring them down into the Valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and imported my land. Back in verse 9, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. And that's what these different nations have been doing. They've been taking their economic wealth and using them towards the research, development, and enhancement of weapons of mass destruction, in particular ICBM nuclear missiles, because the Lord has been putting it into the minds of their leaders and military generals and scientists to do so in preparation for the third world's woe, which will come after the mark of the beast, which is the RFID microchip, has been mandated globally. And the Lord is going to deliver his elect from all these things. Lord's willing, I'm of the elect, as well as you brothers and a few sisters out there. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong, as North Korea has been recently doing, even South Korea, flexing their muscle before the international community. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about, to cause thy mighty ones, which are the angels, to come down, O Yahweh. Let the heathen be wakened, and come up to the Valley of Jehoshaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. So that's where the Lord is going to judge all the heathens round about. And 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter, tells us this. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come, get you down, for the press is full. The fast overflow, for their wickedness is great. Multitudes, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of the Lord Yahweh is near in the valley of decision. So the day of the Lord Yahweh, through Son Yahushai, is near in the valley of decision. And that is why the Lord has been inspiring these different nations to test these different varieties of nuclear missiles. Okay, so with that, I pray this lesson was edifying and informative to the elect. Lord's willing, until the next, I say shalom.